All right, we are unmuted. We're gonna start the meeting. We didn't make any decisions. We're just chatting amongst ourselves while we waited for a couple of members. So this is a recycling committee meeting scheduled for Thursday, June 13th, a regular meeting of the recycling committee. I'm Catherine Ruth, the grant administrator, former town manager, and I'm assisting the committee because we have some grants and other actions and activities that we're working on. So we'll all go around and introduce ourselves.
For those who don't know me, I'm Don Sheep. I'm the Public Works Director, Safety Coordinator for the town of Pittsfield. My home most of the time is not a Public Works garage, but it's down to the transfer station because I get to meet so many great people. So glad to see everybody's here and volunteering.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Helen Zahuski.
Eric Wincross.
Scott Jones.
Lucy Treadwell. Yeah, thank you all for coming. So we will go down through the agenda and we're glad to have Donnie here. He has a dual role with two positions, so he's very busy. First item after introductions is the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to skim through the minutes? And if somebody wanted to make a motion to adopt them, or we can adopt them by consensus with or without amendment or changes.
I make a motion, we adopt the minutes as written.
Okay.
I'll
There's a
second that.
second?
I'll second.
Yeah, Ellen, thank you.
Third it.
All right, anyone have any changes? All right, very good. We'll vote on it. It'll be informal. Everybody will vote. All right, the minutes are approved. And the third item is old business, the reuse building. We'll just go down through this very quickly. This is a facility across from the transfer station on Peltoma Avenue. And I'm gonna speak up to make sure we can all be heard. So we'll all want to speak up because this is a new system and we'll see how we can project our voices better. The first item is the grant application. There are no official grants, governmental grants for the town to apply for to have the reuse building repaired, with the exception of the roof, on which we had filed for FEMA reimbursement because it was damaged during the December 2023 storm. But to actually fix up the building, there are no governmental grants. So we went out and applied for a nonprofit grant. And basically, these are really for nonprofits and not for governmental entities. So we were not approved, which is understandable. So once we get the roof fixed, we'll have to do some fundraising and talk with businesses. The reuse building through the committee and the items that have been sold over the years in which we received payments for donations, which people chose to give us, has given us a little bit over $1,000, which is on the general ledger that's been saved for the building.
Yeah.
So we do have some funds, and with the volunteers and everybody who keeps calling every week to see when it's going to be open, I think that we'll be very successful in getting things taken care of. But we're not going to get grant funding for it because there is no grant for this. There's grants for other items, which we're going to work on later this evening. B is the storm damage repair schedule. So if Donnie just wanted to give us a very brief update on the roof and timeline.
Yeah, basically, they said, the insurance company, due to the condition of the roof previously, that it was a lot of sun damage and wear and tear. We did receive $2,800 from the insurance for storm damage. That's what we got for the check. It was actually $3,800, but we had $1,000 deductible. And the building materials have been ordered for the roof and are underway. As soon as they delivered, we'll have a schedule to get that repaired and the water damage taken care of inside. And we should have be able to get a balance of $4,500 from the insurance company for the rest of the boat.
All right, that should be, that's very good news. It should take care of items, and we've been fortunate. We haven't had many claims, but there's been some very funky storms that have taken place over the last year. So we have had a few issues. C is clearing out old items from the facility, and we talked about having a work day once we got to that stage, once the roof is fixed.
Right. And that would do it, and hopefully we'll get rid of all the moldy stuff and stuff that's gonna be in the way, so we can actually go in there and do a good deep.
Mhm.
Rebranded, repurposed.
Mhm.
maybe some paint on some of those benches and tables. I've got 4 gallons of paint that was donated by a resident to be able to do that, so.
All right, very good. And with all the people calling up about the facility, I think once we're at the right stage to advertise for volunteers, that will be on yourselves, we'll have other volunteers too, definitely. As well as, once we get to a certain stage, we can start advertising for items to be dropped off, because we have a number of people that are saving items for the building to take them there. Because they don't want to just dump them off at the transfer station or throw them away. So I suspect there's more out there than we know. So up recycling was an item listed under old business that Paul Ferrier brought up to us, which was very interesting. Instead of just recycling items and reusing them for the same purpose or for materials, up recycling creates an item which is an increase in value and worth, and they had some nice items that have been created through like an arts and crafts type of thing. And so I do have some handouts here if people want to take those home. Because of the length of the handouts and the fact they're in color, I really can't print them beyond 1 copy, but Eric had borrowed one and brought it back, and if anyone wanted to take them home for ideas, I'm gonna make a list of all the websites so people can go there, and we'll put that on the ones you like, we'll put that on the town website. So if you like them all, we'll put them all on there. If you only like 2, we'll put those on, and people can look at that, and it'll be another item that sort of would be interesting to go out and make sure that we're promoting reuse, recycle, reduce, but we're also promoting upcycling. And I've heard a lot about this on social media too, so they call it another name, but this is some thrifting, I guess, and up thrifting. So this is kind of interesting. We'll actually be on a trend that people do in New York City. Ooh.
That's cool.
So before we go into the climate resilience grant, which is what is going to be the main topic of our meeting. Last meeting, we had a lot of different ideas, and I put them all together in a document, which you have before you this evening. And I do apologize, I had planned to have this ready beforehand, but we got a large grant for highway safety. It's a new grant, which is available to towns so that they can apply to have engineers look at your town. We can't afford to have an engineer unless we get a grant. So they can look at all the roads and figure out other curves that should be taken out, other roads that should be built up. Should you have raised crosswalks or more lanes or less lanes? So they would do a review of the area outside of the Main Street planning initiative grant that's ongoing, the downtown grant that also encompasses Manson Park and a couple of the other parks in the area. So this would take care of the rest of the town. So we got $120,000 grant that's coming in, which is wonderful because we could never afford to do this on our own. We do all our plans, as Donnie knows. We've done our paving plan to capital improvement by ourselves. A lot of towns have engineering and do them, but we've done the best that we can by getting rates and formulas from an engineer that's helpful, and then we do the plans ourselves. So this is something that Donnie and I and others cannot do. We're not traffic engineers. We were required to have a 20% match, which has been $30,000, which we have just a little bit of grant funds available for cash match, and we've saved it over the years. We've only used that fund, small amount, which is going to be used up shortly with that grant, for the energy efficiency main projects for the lighting. We couldn't do electrical work, so we had to have a match for that. And on this grant, because we've done so much in-kind match and have done this for decades, basically, have all the time sheets and the rates, and I'm used to doing this, the USDOT is going to allow us to use Donnie's and my time and anyone else's time that works on the grant as a match for it, which will reduce the cash match, which was really good news. Because pretty much that fund is, a little tiny fund is going to be depleted. every other grant except for the Efficiency Main and this one, we've been able to do in-kind match. And it does take a lot of time to keep track of everything. So I don't mind doing that. Donnie doesn't mind doing it because it will allow us to keep a little bit of cash in case we have another grant coming out. So that's gonna be a big item. And we might be able to do some of the public input when we announce that with this climate resilience grant that we're doing to get more people involved. We might be able to combine them or do a community forum or something. So I got a little distracted on that and then I get a major assignment. So I will try to make sure we have our materials out earlier for the next meeting. Because I doubt we'll get another $120,000 grant before your next meeting. Although I did apply for some. So I wanted to skip down to the new business items and then the questions that we have for Donnie from some of the last meetings that we had. So I found a new resource that some of the southern Maine towns were doing on recycling film. And I don't know if that's something we could do here. And I had sent that information out to Donnie. It might be something that the company, which is called Next Tracks, won't come up here. Sent that out, but that's
Yeah.
copy. And it might be too hard to handle, but it would take some of the items that go into the landfills and cause problems in the compactor and everything and get them out of our system.
What takes a film are we talking about?
Well, it's like your chip bags, they're real thin, like,
Okay, I was thinking video film,
No,
whoever
no.
is film
no,
these days.
no, it's that
Thank
very,
you. I
very,
looked
very
at the
thin
picture.
plastic, saran wraps, that sort
Ah,
of stuff.
right.
Actually, I was able to last week go over to Mid-Coast Solid Waste, which is located in Rockport.
Mhm.
Victor Horton, MNRA, Maine Resource Recovery Association, that brokers a lot of the materials that we bale for sale to other companies and businesses to help make back some sort of money on the recycling to make it worthwhile. So I went over, I took a look at that operation, because one of the things that he's trying to convince me into doing as well as MMRA now has a broker out of, that would be cool. Maybe, I think it's one of the Carolina, South and North Carolina, that will take a baled.
I always wish that they would.
Vinyl sided. And some communities are taking vinyl siding now and it's headed to the landfill. So I wanted to see how that process had worked and what some of the plus and minuses to it. Plus is that it's worth upwards of $800 a ton, which is a good plus. And it's keeping that weight out of the landfill. One of the negatives they have with it is being able to store it, handle it. Because as you know, some of these lengths of vinyl siding, some of it's old, it comes in, it's got mold, it's got crap and paint on it, and then they bring it in 16 and 17, 20-foot lengths, and it's hard to handle, it's hard to get compactors. So they're having to store it somewhat, be able to cut it and process it. And I think that they said that they had just shipped 5 bales maybe, which weighed about 800 pounds a piece, so about 4,000 pounds, and it took them a little over a year and a half to accumulate that, which for a total cost of, for a total value of, I think it was like $2,200 or something that they got in return.
And how do they ship it? Is it like road trip? You guys would like road
No,
trip, go
no.
down to Carolina?
No, we would broker it through MMRA. I think.
Oh, okay, through them.
So the issue they have now is it takes so long to get stuff, you have to get 4 or 5 or 6 communities to be able
Wow,
to
uh-huh.
sell at the same time to actually make it worthwhile. They want a minimum of 40,000 pounds before they'll truck it out, that will make it worth their while to come out. and
Okay,
truck it.
that's cool.
So number one is you have to have storage space. Number two is sometimes it's tough to handle. And again, it's only based on when people are doing, obviously, other communities that may be doing a lot of building, or a lot of remodeling, or a lot of freshening up of their residential properties. It takes time. And probably in our operation, the biggest thing for me is always space.
Yeah.
We've got, you know, when we built, the first recycling building up top, there was 2 balers and that small building up top. That's what they thought at the time in 1986 was what we were gonna use for space. Well, they found out in the first 6 months that what was with just recycling cardboard at the time, that wasn't gonna work. So they built the 60 by 80 big building downstairs and put a couple of balers to process downstairs. At that time, the town owned 4 tractor trailer, just the bodies, and we stored our materials in those, and we used to have the trucking companies come hook on to ours, truck them, and then bring them back and put them in place. Today, that is not true. We have 0 transport trailers. We have to rely on, third party, truck and trailer, and we have to load. So now our storage is in our building. Which before we used to be able to store in trailers. Our trailers got in disrepair. We bought them used anyway from Main Trailer up in Bangor. I think we paid like $2,000 or $3,000. They paid for themselves probably 50 times over. But the thought process is we weren't gonna spend that type of money. I used 53-foot trailer right now at Central Main Trailer is right around, $35,000 to $40,000, which may give us 4 or 5 years of life, so for going up and down the road, so not really cost effective. We're better off using a third party contractor to do that. So we're limited to space. We're kind of stuck in our footprint where we're at. If we would have envisioned, and this is what we always do, we envision something and say, oh, this is adequate. We don't look 20 years down the road. Look at Newport. Over there by the triangle, that worked perfect in the 1980s. Now that we're in 2024, they're talking about rotaries and the traffic jams, and they didn't foresee businesses building up on both sides. So that planning process, they planned for what they needed 30 years ago or 40 years ago, and now we're kind of constrained. And because of our permitting at the transfer station, that's our problem. We can't expand anymore on a footprint. If anybody uses a facility, you know what I mean? We're kind of cramped. It's not really user friendly when you're trying to back up the trash and then somebody wants to get recycling and you got people walking through and people trying to back up.
Lots of fender benders.
And then people trying to get rid of the trash, they'll pull out recycle in the building. Yeah, it bottlenecks when on busy days. Saturdays, it's really bad. So we're kind of constrained to that footprint. So anything that I look at doing for recycling first, everybody's always, the least discount, is it cost effective? Are we losing money? We saving money? What are we doing? So what's the avoided cost? What are we doing? Because if we're paying somebody and their benefits, is it worth it or is it costing us a ton of money? Or do we just throw it in the garbage? And that's the trend that's going on right now across the state. There's a lot of towns, small towns that are throwing everything in the trash. They've gone from the curbside recycling, they've gone from the drop-off containers. They're finding out benefits are increasing, the cost to pay workers per hour is going way up because they're demanding twice what they're making. The prices of the commodities are down. So it makes it real easy to have them throw it in the garbage and not worry about it. The state over the years, we've talked about this, is threatened if we don't meet a 50% threshold as a community, we're not going to get state funding or subsidies or anything from the state. Well, it's been an absent threat, obviously, because now for the last 3 or 4 years, some local communities around here have been throwing in the garbage and there's been no consequences whatsoever. So our biggest thing is making sure that we're not losing a bunch of money or it's costing us more, and proving that not only is it the environmentally right thing to do, but it's also somewhat cost effective. And it's cheaper than us storing it in the garbage. So that's the first thing. The second is do we have space enough to be able to hold it? Right now, our number 2 plastics and number 1, 3, 5, and 7, it takes me over a year to get a load of plastic. So with the stretch film stuff, I saw that down there, they started that. Midcoast has been recycling stretch film with that real thin stuff for 4 years. They've accumulated 5 bales for a total of 800 pounds. So 800 pounds, would cost them $62, I think he told me $62.50 to throw it in the garbage. And now he's paid $2,800 in labor costs to store it and have people bail it to have it there. So again, we need to be careful because there are people that got sharper pencils in this community when it comes to this stuff. And 40,000 pound minimum load.
That's,
So we may get 4 bales in 3 years and then get $50 at the time of storage. And then the other thing that has to be stored inside, it has to be dry. If the sun hits it, it degrades it. So if it's a little bit of fading, they won't buy it. So one of the things I do know is some of the companies packing companies that use it, UPS,
mhm.
the postal service, they have bins. Rather than bailing it themselves, they have these bins that they drop off, they throw all the loose stuff in it, and there's some company that comes and picks it up. Across the state.
Walmart has that. I take my film stuff to Walmart. Now, if they just dump in the landfill, I don't know. But that's where I put all these things on that list. I
Yeah.
take it to Walmart, have a bag of those things. So
And then-
I don't know what they do with theirs, of course, bigger company, maybe they actually. do something with it.
I think that's the same thing, I think they have. Whatever these companies are.
Yeah.
They must have a big dumpster or something they supply. To them to be able to put all of the loose stuff in. I know Walmart bales their cardboard, I see it go up and down, they've got a baler there, their employees bail it.
Okay, how many people in this community go to Walmart now and then? They can take their plastic there, I mean,
Yeah,
really?
and there are some, I know there's a bunch of places that do the plastic bags. Oh my God, if you want a good commodity, if you got plastic.
Oh, I get.
That's
those
almost,
reusable.
that's almost like having, like you're selling a legal drug, because people use them for the kitty litter, but
You
people.
have to get them from out of state and bring it in, sorry.
True.
I use it for landfill, I do.
But, you know,
Yeah,
it's
well,
one of
the
those things, yes, they're hideous, you used to go down to the transfer station, that was one of my pet peeves, I'd climb up in trees and almost break my neck. to go.
I know, it is,
Because
it
they're
is a
hanging
good thing,
everywhere.
it's a good thing.
But I will tell you, you're never gonna limit plastic bags, we still put a trash.
Yeah. Only we have to pay for them.
Yeah, as far as promoting to use them for everything, I don't think it's a great thing to do. But that was the same case scenario. We used to get told we could recycle the bags. So we would bale those, they get tangled in the baler, cause wicked maintenance. And then when you go to sell them, you ship them to them and they'd send them back. That's, they're too dirty, we don't want them, this and that. So now we ship them and now we gotta pay to have them back shipped to us to throw them in the garbage anyway.
Yeah.
So the other thing that's happened, unfortunately, with some of this stuff that's really damaging us is single stream.
Oh, not doing single screen?
That there are still communities, a lot of communities doing single stream. And that means when they throw their cardboard in their glass, and their tin cans and their plastic, and they put it in a big squash and they squash it all together, they take it somewhere and dump it on the ground.
Mhm,
It's all mixed together
mhm.
and they bale it and they ship it over to China and they go, look at this trash, we don't want it, or we ship it to Canada, we don't want it, it's trash. So it's brought the price of good recycled materials, post-consumer. I was getting $150 to $200 a ton about 3.5 years ago for a cardboard. It went down to $10 a ton because they can't trust people who were sending them material to say it's clean material. They can't have contamination. It's a single stream. The
Single
great thing
screen,
about single stream
yeah.
is you get credit for all the tonnage you put in there, whether it's recycling or not, and they drop it off somewhere. You want to see something that's disgusting.
Yes, yes.
Go to the landfill and watch the single stream get dumped in there, the cardboard, the mixed cardboard, the plastics, the tin and everything. Because it's so mixed, they can't make no money off of it.
Okay,
But somewhere on a piece of paper, we took 4.5 tons of recyclables. So communities or organizations get credit for the recycling, when it's really not getting recycled.
That's they do in bigger cities.
Yeah, that's.
Smoke and mirror.
But-
There is Eco Maine, now there are some communities, Portland and some of those down in southern Maine, they do have, Eco Maine does a really good job. They do the commingled recycling and they have a belt and they're sorting the stuff out so they can get the best bang for the buck. There are reputable companies out there, but there are other ones that are not, they're packing everything into it. It's no different than just throwing trash in, so they're throwing. I mean, if you wanna really see what type of, impact it has, it's brought down prices, so globally the markets are down, it's making it so it's not worthwhile or not fiscally responsible to recycle. You've got people that are still looking to recycle that are single streamers. Constant battle I have because we promote around here for communities like Palmyra don't have it, we have people bring it over and they're throwing tissues. and toilet paper and napkins and used paper plates. Bags, brown paper bags, which used to be cardboard, so it's still cardboard. They were used to single stream and everything, and that's one in our newspaper. I bet 55 times a day, we have to go over there, pick through that box of newspaper to pull that stuff out. And you say, when we catch them, oh, you know, somebody from Palmyra recycling, well, this is trash, this is trash, this is trash. Well, we always recycle that. Well, you know what? I don't want used toilet paper. I don't want used tissues. I don't want used paper plates and you ate your pizza and your baked beans and all of that stuff, because we have to handle the stuff and it contaminates the rest of it. You know, and it's worldwide market trending for paper, newspaper. We used to do a load, 42,000 pounds of newspaper we used to bail and ship on every month from the town of Pittsfield. We now do maybe 1 or 2 loads a year. Again, we have
I
electronic.
contribute to the newspapers.
You got computers. You wanna see something, mad, you ought to see them go down there, at least every day in the morning. We have 6 people that check in every morning for newspapers. They're a dying commodity. They want them for
Oh,
their animals, they want them for their gardening, they want them so they can start their wood stove.
Yep.
And it's competition. Everybody comes flying in, the sooner the earlier you open, the better, because they're looking for a handful of newspapers.
it's being
You don't see them.
reused.
Yeah, it is, but we've got, you know, since we have, you know, computers and we're going paperless, there's no paper. So now what people think is paper is not really paper. So what little scribs of stuff that they have, they think it, I mean, the wax paper that people get with their Dunkin' Donuts that they put around their donuts, it's wax paper, that's newspaper. And you could sit right there and say, it says right there, newspapers, magazines, old mail, telephone books, that sort of stuff, and they're throwing 85% of what they're throwing in there is not recycled. So we're trending in a way too, is where this stuff, we're saving space for newspaper. We have to make some decisions as a recycling committee. Is it worth our time and effort to do certain things? Or do we go more on a household by household? Like you said, I know that if you go to Gilman's now, that you can take all of your fluorescent light bulbs that we recycle, the universal waste, you can take them back to Walmart, and Best Buy will take the old TVs, and because they have a universal waste recycling program.
Okay.
Because
Okay, Walmart does it too?
I believe some of the Walmart, I don't know if it's Super Walmart, some of them will take them back because
Right.
they recycle them. The mercury bulbs, they recycle, so they'll take them back, or you can take them and drop them off there, and they will accept.
So for the issues with people from Palmyra who are used to single stream, we need to give Palmyra
They have,
our updated brochure.
They-
So they
they-
can pass that out, not the, draft one, but the new one that we've done.
yeah, and they do have one, I dropped it off, and because one of the issues we also had over here was. I was talking with Priscilla the other day, and I walked in the office over in Palmyra out there, and it says, you can take your trash to Pittsfield. I'm like, no. No, I tried, well, the woman made the thing out, she was talking about recycling, but that's not what it said. It says you can
Okay,
take
I
your
didn't
trash.
realize Palmyra does recycle.
Yes,
But
some of
yeah.
the residents, when they ended their program, when they were doing
Yeah.
the single stream,
Yeah, I remember.
are still very good recyclers.
Yeah. I think
Scott's
they're
sister
right.
brings her stuff over, and it's just, she follows what goes on the flyer, she does it, because there's a lot of people that do it, but there's a lot of people who.
Yeah.
That are still figment, and you can show them, and we've talked to them before, hey, listen, we're gonna stop taking your recycling, we don't, because if we have to take stuff out of the recycling, throw it in the trash, it's costing us money.
Mhm.
No matter, so if you get 500 people that are bringing 1 pound every week, that's 500 pounds a week, you take that over a year, that's thousands, it could cost us thousands of dollars. So trying to eliminate that problem.
Did you say there's a market for newspaper, but there just isn't, it's not there anymore?
Because everybody, since the computer age, everybody's reading the newspaper.
I know, you wonder how long newspapers are gonna be around.
And that's the problem right now.
Fewer and fewer and fewer, but there is still a market for.
Oh, yeah, to sell it, yeah, if we're still getting $70 or $80 a ton, it costs us about 40 to process it, so we can make a little money, plus we're saving it and going to the trash,
Yeah.
it cost us $80 a ton to get rid of it. So, there's what the avoided cost and what we're selling it for, yeah, it's very marketable.
Huh.
That's the problem right now, people are hoarding, because there's not any newspaper and they're hoarding, thinking there's no.
Yeah.
I see a woman that comes in, she says, God forbid, she said, I'm glad that we, because I had asked her, she always comes in every day with a couple of things of. With her cat litter, and I said, man, you've gotta be running out of those Hannaford bags. I said, those, I used to get those to put them in my bathroom
Of course.
wastebasket. And I said, you must be running out of those by now. She says, oh, honey, you have no idea. She says, half of my basement is full of Rubbermaid totes full of these things. I saved these. I love them. She says,
So
I
is
put
it
them.
really bad? I bring them from out of state and they end up in our landfill because I go by car and my family in Kentucky and
No.
Florida give me all their bags so I can use them, so I don't have to pay for them.
But they're, no, they have a.
And I have totes in the basement.
No, that's it. But they serve a purpose. I mean, if
Yeah,
you're using
yeah.
them as a trash receptacle.
Remember we used to use paper bags for trash? Did anybody remember that? That's
Yeah.
what, that was all paper, much more.
But people use them, I know a lot of people that use them, that will use those bags and put them inside their boots for the liners when they're going out hunting and stuff, because the liner to keep their feet dry.
Sure, duct tape and.
So I mean, they have some purpose, but as far as using it for, reusing them for, the problem is we didn't reuse. Reuse is a big part of this recycling
Yes,
triangle,
Mhm.
and we never reused anything. The problem is when you had people bringing thousands of these down and dumping them in the dumpster.
Yeah.
They were repurposing them or reusing them.
Yeah.
But
So we'll update the recycling brochure, because I just got the information from Donnie on the apparel box, the green box that's there and the type of items to put in there, which is Apparel Impact, veteran-owned business. And this is resources for veterans for clothing with gently used bedding, sheets, blankets, comforters, good shoes. And so that's the green box that's by the
it's
electronics.
actually white.
White?
It's a white box, yeah.
Okay.
The universal waste boxes are green.
Oh, they're
The,
green,
the,
okay.
the clothing box is white, and it is an apparel impact. They pick up every Tuesday morning. They're prompt every Tuesday morning. They're there to pick up the stuff, and they've been at roughly about 9 AM. And, very good network of people. Very seldom do they find themselves getting stuff that's no good. Because I've told them if they get donations and if there's something there that they really can't use, and he never has more than a handful of stuff that he may ask to throw in the dumpster that somebody donated us.
Yeah.
But, you know, good clothes and stuff. It's veteran owned, it's for veterans that are in tough times, homeless veterans. They were down to the Maine Recycling Conference last year, and they're in Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and parts of Connecticut. And they have done wonderful work with the veterans, so. Yeah, just make sure that it's decent stuff. If you got stuff that's got rips and holes on it, that get thrown away because it's just no good, they don't want that. But if you've got stuff that you've grown out of.
they used to be able to take that to Goodwill and they do, you do rags. Yeah.
Is the plastic, is that still profitable? Do you make anything on that in terms of the recycled plastic?
Oh, yes.
If it's heavy pack,
Yeah, the most rigid containers, the number 2 stuff. I sold a load. In January. And I think we got like $14,000 something for that load of plastic. Wow. It can vary. It can go from anywhere from 12 to 16 cents a pound. I've seen this high as 74 cents a pound for recycled plastics. But it's the number 2 heavy stuff that's profitable.
Mhm.
They will take the other stuff. But sometimes they'll ask when I get it there, they'll ask for a processing fee or whatever for the really.
Mhm.
See, people don't understand the difference between rigid plastic and. People bring in like those, your Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee, that's not rigid plastic. Rigid containers are hard.
Mhm.
Like the peanuts, the clear things that peanuts come in, it's not one plastic, it's hard.
There's no lids on those things. I thought they weren't recyclable. The tops that you screw on, you know, they're.
Some may be, some are not. When you take them off and look at them, some may say, you know, some may have 14, some may be 9, some may be, but they'll tell you exactly what they
That's,
are.
I always thought.
It's
they
like your milk
could be,
jug
and I
number
could check
2.
those.
But the caps are number 4. Most of your caps are made out of number 4.
So do you bother with them or should I just put them in my garbage, caps?
Yeah, caps go, well,
Yeah.
And it's the same way we tell plastic caps on your, glass products is to put it in the garbage.
Yeah,
So, because we really don't want caps, but if you got metal caps, obviously on the
Yeah.
glass, you can throw that in with the tin and metal
Okay.
cans.
I've been doing it right.
That, I think that's really one of the biggest issues is that everything is in plastic. Everything at the stores, I mean, double plastic,
Well,
the cemetery is full of plastic flowers that are gonna last longer than the cemetery.
yeah,
You know, and all this plastic.
it is. You know what my biggest thing is? It drives me, I told Catherine the other day, it drives me crazy. It really drives me crazy that people will they either don't recycle, under recycle, or they way over it. And the thing that drives me crazy is, I don't know if it's education wise, if it's common sense wise, what it is, but every other day, somebody will come in with the packaging on these containers. I'll go over and say, those don't go in there. Well, yes, they do. They have a triangle on it, number
Oh.
6.
No,
I said, what does the sign say? They said, number 1 through 7 plastics. Okay. What is that? It's styrofoam. Okay.
Yeah.
So that doesn't go in there, it's trash. Well, no, it's number 6. It's got a 6 on it, it goes in the plastic. I said, hold on a second. I said, hold on a second.
Yeah.
1 through 7 plastic. What do you have in your hand? It's styrofoam. Plastic, styrofoam. Plastic, styrofoam. They're 2 different materials. I don't care if you put a 43 on it, 1 or 17, it's not plastic. It needs to go, well, why do they do that?
yeah,
I said because the problem is there's no follow through to the process. Every manufacturer is supposed to have recycled content or try to make everything they use recyclable. So in order to make their conscience feel good, they put a triangle and put 6 on it.
okay, even though it isn't, I agree, it didn't make sense to me, I
Now,
saw the
let me tell you
recycling.
something, a lot of places are only recycling number 2. Because now the other plastics cost money.
Mhm.
So now there's a mad dash by manufacturers to put everything in. Anything, any other number plastic but number 2. Number 2 costs them a little bit more money
Mhm.
on the manufacturing
Yeah,
to produce that because it is reusable, it's more durable,
Yeah.
you get to reuse it. So if they make it out of cheap plastics that we don't recycle, they can throw them away, so they put a number on it, it clears their conscience, look, we made something recycling, whether there's an end market for it.
Okay,
Or whether it's responsible to recycle it because they know it's gonna go in the garbage. And you're right, they're doing everything. And the sad thing is what's one of the biggest components of plastic?
petroleum,
Petroleum. And they're
Petroleum.
screaming about, oh, we're gonna run out of fuel, we're gonna run out of this, we're gonna run out of that. They're excavating landfills out west, out in Arizona and places. And scavenging. And re-trucking stuff because it didn't break down in the desert, it couldn't break down in the ground, they're re-trucking the real trash, and they're actually picking through trash and taking some of that other stuff out for the resources.
well, there you go, reuse.
You know, I watched it, you know, it all comes around. I mean, I got a sister-in-law that bought a $280,000 Tesla, that's a battery operated vehicle. She came up a couple of weeks ago and her car, she couldn't find a place to charge it, so she bought a gasoline Honda generator with a plug-in, so she plugged in her car. And she sent me a
Yeah.
picture, and I'll tell you what, I kept that picture, so you're using a gasoline powered generator to charge a battery.
Yeah.
So. Same way, where do you think these charging units that doesn't have the generator to them, it's gonna have power from somewhere, so if you trace that back to where it comes from. It's still coming from coal, oil, nuclear, it's coming from somewhere else.
Yeah,
And it's the same way with this stuff, until we could close a loop with manufacturers. The government ought to be putting penalties on these people, you need to make it. Out of stuff that we can reuse or we can recycle to close that loop, and until they do that, we're never gonna get out of this problem.
Yeah.
They're out there, Catherine, they're screaming right now about landfill space. We've been taking for the last 25 years, I've been hollering at the state level, stop taking out of state garbage and demolition debris. The cities are the big users and consumers, they throw everything away. And it's all coming up here because they have no place to put it where they're at, and they don't want to see it, they don't want to smell it, they don't want to deal with it. And then they truck it up here, and because they're trucking so much up here. It's costing them less per ton to dispose of it than people who live here. we own the land, we own the resources, and they're getting it cheaper than we are because they're producing so much. They just passed a law, if you guys didn't know this, last June. Because there was companies out of state that were bringing stuff in Maine and paying Maine companies to take it. And they set it outside, and once they set it in their yard. The company from Maine owned it, and then they were allowed to dispose of it in our landfills, because now they own it in Maine. It's a bad process. It's a broken system, and the only way we can do it is get out, get the people to do what we can do the best we can. And recycle as much as we can, and keep it as clean as we can, and
So it sounds like the vinyl siding is not a good fit for us.
we're gonna try it because it's rigid. We're gonna just see, we do get. Just to see, I'm doing this test pile. I got one container that's a non-roadworthy dumpster down there that we're gonna start collecting, and just to see how much we can get.
But we're not going to put it on the recycling brochure.
No,
You're just
no, we're
gonna
just
talk to
gonna,
the
when
pub-
people come in with it, I think I'm just
Okay.
gonna try it and see over a year how much I can accumulate
Okay,
as a
okay.
test pilot, and then bale it and see how much weight I can get out of it, and then track time with the people baling it, whatever, and what we're saving, and see if it's viable. The film stuff, I will tell you, is not worth it. It would take, literally, it would probably take the town of Pittsfield 45 years to get a truckload of that stuff by weight. Because it's very light, it takes a lot of it. But, I mean,
Take the
and
Walmart.
I think, yeah, that, or either that, or if one of these companies could set us a, a container
Well,
that. we could
that's
just
what
put
I
it.
thought.
I think that would be.
A bin or a container for that gets picked up, but
Once a
no,
month.
we don't wanna, we don't wanna bail it or anything.
Yeah, I think it'd be a mess if you got that light stuff. I don't know if any of you have been up there on windy days when we're trying to bale paper or the shredded paper. In the summertime, and it looks like it's snowing out the door, we pick it up.
Yeah.
You've been up there, everything's blowing, everybody like, oh. So,
Look, it's snowing.
yes, it's snowing outside. Yeah, so I think it would probably be a mess, but if we had some sort of container, it's just like with the Baker's Commodities now with the fry ladle oil. Now they are dropping them all over, making it convenient for restaurants, so they can dump them into those, so they're not coming down to those things attract bears and animals and vectors and flies. They got the nice containers, they drop them off, they're willing to pick them up for a small fee at the eatery, and that's blowing up the state. That's pretty good, it's pretty good little gig that they got going on. I'd like to see that for compostables too, where we could have a spot where we could put a container, a leak-proof container where people could take food waste or whatever, scraps, and be able to have a sheet or something, dump it in it. And then have somebody come take it away once a month and.
Compostable food.
Oh, just to
Don't
get
get
the
products.
food, the food that is thrown away out of the trash stream. I mean, that's.
Except
I'll tell you, and it's discouraging, like I said, I've worked there long enough that if you see the things I see, it's just like a food cover. They do so much good work in the community, they do a lot. They don't want the good vegetables, they don't want the good fruits, they want the donuts and the cream horns and the ring dings and the woo-hoos and the cream pies and all that stuff. And to watch Mr. Goodwin come down here and dump boxes and boxes and boxes of
Yeah,
fruit and
that would
vegetable,
be good.
it's disturbing, it really is.
Yes, I've been downtown where they've come, I was in the Elks, they said,
A lot of
anybody want some, take it, it's gonna.
And I'll deny it if anybody says this, but I take a lot of that stuff, like
Yeah.
if there's apples or some of that
Yeah.
broccoli and stuff. And I'll deny it, because you're not supposed to do it, but I may run some down by the edge of the bog down there and let the deer and stuff eat it, so.
I don't know, you're on.
I won't change the camera. But
Good idea.
down by the wood pile, by the edge of the bog, there's a little flat spot, and the deer and stuff come out there, and we've done that before when people bring in, when they've cut down an apple tree or something in the fall, and they got the little apples or whatever, we haven't done them over. And I'll tell you what, the animals appreciate it.
If you have any apple tree wood, that's great for,
For smoking meat.
yeah,
It is,
yeah, no,
yes, it is.
my husband, yeah, this apple tree.
But yeah, so we do, I mean, and that's huge. I bet you didn't know that either. There'll be a lot of people that do that now. They come down looking, when people cut down trees.
Yeah.
They're looking, for alder, they're looking for apple wood and certain wood, and they're using it for their backyard of cooking and smoking their meat now.
Yeah.
It's amazing. That's another.
Crazy if you buy it, yeah.
Kindling wood
Mhm.
is another competitive thing at the transfer station. Everybody can get down there to find boards without nails, so they can cut it up and use it for kindling
That's
wood.
reusable.
We do a lot of that. I mean, that's where a lot of that tonnage from the reuse comes from. There's a lot of people that use certain things that you wouldn't believe. If probably half of that wasn't leaving the transfer station and being reused in another way, shape or form, our tonnages would be skyrocketing.
So the food waste was going to be the subject, if it could be,
Right.
of the second grant. For the diversion.
Waste diversion.
DEP, which we're gonna have to get started on.
Yeah.
To find, probably not at the transfer station, but if there's a way to finance this and have the businesses and the hospital and those that have, the schools that have the
It has
cafeterias.
the big, that are the big producers.
Yeah, get that going and then bring in the citizens.
But if this is for compost, it cannot be meat and other products. Is that right? Is this for composting
Yes,
purposes?
Yeah,
or-
your meats are not really compost.
No, you can't have that. So that would be another big education thing. You can't
Yeah.
just clear out
Oh,
your
yeah.
refrigerator and
Right.
dump everything.
When your freezer goes bad, you just can't throw all your raw meat.
Yeah, I mean, I do have home composting, but.
I do too. I do it a lot. And it's very beneficial.
So are there specific companies that have containers that can?
They do. There's 2 or 3 different companies now that will actually set out containers for a small fee that will set them places. So people that are at eateries and stuff that will save the food and they pick them up. I'm trying to think of the company that was just here last week. I just see one of their trucks. It was it looks like a trash compactor truck, but it's got the seal back so no fluids come out. They got the little front load, so they pick it up, dump it, and they set it back down. And businesses.
I know we tried to work with the farm up north, with the energy.
Yes, yeah.
Set up and that.
Up in the corners, yeah. If you, I would like to, and I'll talk to, Patrick Neal from Casella. I think it would be beneficial for us to take a road trip and go over to Unity Plantation, over to their composting facility. I don't know if any of you even know it exists over there. But they've got some world-class compost that they produce from food waste and stuff. Last year, when I was amazed by the 954-pound pumpkin in front of their office that they were growing there with material. But to see the process and see what they're doing over there, and it's become very profitable for them as a company to compost, because they do it and they sell it, and they've got a lot of big food producers and farmers that are buying that stuff. And they're saying it's just one. I think it would be beneficial for them to go over there, maybe after they close down, maybe I could get us a small tour of the facility and what they're doing to give us an idea of,
Compost without forever chemicals.
yes. Yeah, there are some composters that used to put the porta toilet stuff and that stuff down in southern Maine. There was one, and
Disgusting.
Wow.
that didn't last very long.
Good.
So, but yeah, this one over here at Stewart Unity Plantation. I've had the opportunity twice to go over there and look at what they're doing there, doing some wonderful things with their compost over there.
So the food waste, because of the sheer weight, is something that we should focus on.
Yeah, they're saying what, 35 to 47% of the weight in most garbage is coming from food. And I believe it.
Even if the grant wouldn't cover it because it's a rental rather than something we're buying, unless we buy the unit, it still would be a good idea to try to.
I was
incorporate
thinking
food.
myself that if we could enter into a contract to be able to reduce the amount of waste and have a contract with the people that were gonna be doing it, like the schools,
Mhm,
the broken fire up at the golf course, their kitchen,
mhm.
Biddles or whatever, that if we bought the containers, that they would agree to use the company for the service. So part of the service that they give is if there's a rental for that container and a small fee to pick that up, but if we counted bought containers, so you could advertise.
Mhm.
give us good advertising, people could see them, that if we had enough money to buy some of these containers for staff, we made a contract with the people that if you put these here and put your food waste in there, we'll buy the container, you just pay for the disposal fee. And see what it does to your garbage bill at the end of the month. Cool. Instead of you having to
Oh,
go
yeah.
spend,
Mhm.
instead of sending 12 tons to the landfill at $800, you're only sending 2 tons over, and this is only costing you $50, so you're saving $500 a month by doing it this way.
It would save
How
the
about,
schools.
like Danforth's and the grocery stores like that?
Danforth is huge, you should see the stuff, again, that they throw away.
Does that go right through the transfer
It
station?
does,
Mhm.
it does, it's scary, you wouldn't even believe it, you wouldn't believe it. A
And
lot
it
of
goes
stuff.
right straight to trash at this point.
Yeah, I've in the fall, I've done that, I've done it a lot of times too, I'll pull out, they'll have 2 of them boxes full of lettuce, that's got a little bit of brown on the leaves, I'll take them 12 heads of lettuce, and what do you think I do with them?
Distribute them to people?
No, I wouldn't,
you
because
animal.
it's in a, yes,
I would
but,
take
but my furry little animal friends love the free food,
Yeah.
and it's staying out of the landfill.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of breads, they can only stay so long on the shelf before they start molding the breads, the cakes, the stuff that comes out of the deli, some of the cheeses and stuff, they all have shelf lives on them. So sometimes it scare you, the number of cases, the hundreds of bags of potato chips that are in there.
So they would
That's
be
a
another
mustard item.
potential customer that
I-
has more than what we would think.
Yeah, yeah, so Danforth would be another good one. They used to be,
Oh,
they
yeah.
used to do it, I know when it was, Shop and Save, but Homestead used to have when we used to have the pig farms around here, a couple of pig farms, they just put the barrels out back and they pick them up every day and take them out and feed their pigs.
Oh, yeah.
And that was great,
Yeah.
in them days. When Shark Trans was out on the Hussey Road and those pig farms, I bet we didn't have a quarter container of trash from
Yeah.
Shop and Save or now Danforth. Now that big box is full every time, they bring it in twice a week and it's rounded right to the top.
So you can research what the companies are and find out what arrangements could be.
See what they could do if we applied for
Yeah,
a grant for the pipe and specific dumpsters to hold it. I'm sure they have to be a specific one, they probably have to have seals on them so they won't stink and
Mhm.
that sort of thing, but if we were able to do that, would they be willing to come to bat and say, listen, we'll charge a fee and, because I know the more people, I do know this, the more people or more businesses that you have in town, the cheaper it
Yeah.
gets
Makes
for
sense.
everybody.
So I looked at those waste diversion grants on who got them, the towns or the entities that got them for the very early spring issuance. And there were, I think, 5 to 6, and the grants were from $8,000 up to like 17,000. So they're not large grants, but they did a lot of work to get that $8,000 payment.
Yeah.
But it did have some good projects there, that would cut down your waste and divert it, so that was good. So do we have any other type of items we wanna talk about? It sounds like the film recycling is a possibility if there's a container that's picked up and taken away that we don't pay for.
And I think if some of these companies are actually, because they did this a while back, was UPL, United Plastics Lumber. Wherever they market that stuff, they have dumps because they can reuse the stuff that's being cut off and when they're building stuff, and they were actually at a program where they would drop off dumpsters in communities and they wanted the stuff back. Whirlpool with their vinyl stuff,
Yeah.
they were bringing all that, everything they ground and sanded up there, and they went with wood, they would bring 3 or 4 tons of that powder and they dump it, Bolsa's dump it, it would go all over the place. DEP would come up and say, whoa, that's a special industrial process waste. They need to figure that out. Well, Tom Gates up there, I worked with him and he found an outlet from a company, one of the companies that produced it. And said, we'll take it in any way, shape or form. So they were loading it on railroad cars and they were taking it back to wherever they were. It wasn't costing them anything. And Tom said that the first year, it saved him $11,000 in disposal costs from Mike Bolston. Cool. Plus, I said, you're gonna have to do it anyway, because we can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
Our license said, we're not gonna be taking that stuff anymore, it's special waste. You
Yeah.
do need to find a place for it. It's gonna, you're gonna pay for it.
Mhm.
You can either recycle it. Or you can pay to dispose of it some other way and spend more money, but we can't take it in there. Sometimes that's what it takes. We're not gonna accept this material. You need to find a place, you need to find a way to reuse it.
All right, a good discussion. Donnie, do you have anything else you wanna update the group on with recycling, reuse and reduce before we go to
And
the?
just a reminder, I just wanna throw this out there so you guys can throw it out there. If you, I know the reuse building's closed, but we're having a big success at the transfer station. And we're telling people, if you still wanna bring stuff, we got we call it the Walmart section out in front of the Jersey Berry and stuff, and we have a little bit of overflow over by the side of the building. But if you got good usable items, bring them.
Yeah.
We'll put them out there and we have people that come up that not only do their trash and recycle, but they also come up to shop.
Of
And a
course.
lot of the stuff, about 90% of the stuff that gets left there, somebody takes it.
And you're
we don't
talking
have
about right in front of the bins, right?
Yeah.
by the-
Yeah, and then we have an overflow right over beside the building too, over
Okay.
by the big door. So anything there, we put out there. Like I said, we'll leave it there. Some stuff will stay there might stay there 6-7 days, but eventually it'll go. And after something stays out in the weather or whatever, we see it's just not gonna go. We end up disposing of it. But we get rid of 90% of what people drop off.
My husband brings
If it
back
isn't
more than it
trash,
takes.
well, people will
It's
take it.
reuse.
They'll
What you
take
get.
it. We have a real success. And like I said, I think it's filling that void because the reuse building isn't open.
Yeah.
So they can still bring it. We've had some people come up, well, what about that? Well, what do you got? Well, we just had a yard sale and we got a couple boxes of some good stuff. Bring it up front. It barely hits the ground sometimes. And boom, it's gone. The next person comes in and it's gone. I need new dishes. I need this. And
There's been some interesting things there. There was some cages. I don't know what would go in them, but they were huge cages.
yeah, they use them for chickens. They went real quick. They didn't stay very long. That people use them. Matter of fact, there's a guy in town said he can only have 4 or 6 or something.
Mhm.
And he's got a place where he lets them free roam, but he says, the problem is I keep putting them in my shed and I don't have no place to corral them. I have these little places here everywhere. He says, I was told that you got cages and you put some straw stuff in it, they'll always go in the cage at night. So he said, I want to try it. And he came back this past week, said, oh, them things work beautiful. You're getting more. I'd like to
I
have a few
wondered
more.
what those would be for. They
Yeah.
were so
I-
huge.
I'll tell you, you should see some of the stuff people make,
We-
bicycles, they take all bicycles, the guy that makes deer drags, the guy kind of made 2 of them or whatever, when they go out hunting a deer, they take them in the woods so they don't have to drag a deer. There's just some things people come in, there's another guy that comes in and takes old bikes and fixes them up and gives them to kids.
Cool.
We just got a couple nice metal chair frames for outdoors. Beautiful. I bought $20 cushions at Walmart. I have
Yeah,
chairs. that
I got a metal aluminum
cost
round table.
$100. I
got
bought
2 years.
new.
Yeah, I got them 2 years ago and it's still out in my backyard,
Yeah.
out by my fire pit. I mean, it's a lot of stuff.
You have the largest TV I ever saw in the reuse and the recycling center. It was up against the wall. I don't know if it was not working or why somebody would ever have brought that in.
And you know, I looked at that when they brought that in and I went, oh my God, that's gonna weigh 1,000. You know how much that weighed?
How much?
17 pounds. It was a 96-inch television, 8-foot screen. I said, yeah, it's, his cat jumped on his stand or whatever, hit the corner of it. He said, it just barely hit the corner of it. And he said, the thing went black and it's never works in.
Oh, no, because it's only 17 pounds, there's not much there to keep it.
And you get these ones like this, the old CRT ones, they bring them in, they weigh 64 pounds. You're like, I can't get that thing up in the bar. And I can't believe they're still around after all these years.
We just got rid of the TV.
We just figured that out the other, I just figured that out the other day. I'm trying to remember my number because our universal waste recyclers there. Because we've used 4 companies since. We started in 2000, they never started universal waste until recycling until 2006. 2000, no, because you came in 2002, right?
Yes. and
So it's
I had to
2000
work
It
on
was
that.
2002, 2003, they started doing it on the state level. And we was talking with North Coast, one of our recyclers for electronics. And he said that Pittsfield has a population of 3,900 to 4,200, depending on seasonals. He says since 2000, we started recycling because we used to have to pay a little bit for it, but we did the right thing, to pay a little bit to recycle. So that we disposed of, I can't remember, it was 363,000 some televisions. And I said, there's 4,000 people. I'm thinking, so I'm sitting there, so I'm sitting there with my phone and he's just chuckling, I'm looking, I'm saying, holy crap, I said, if we had 4,500 people, that means that every person had 57.9 TVs in there.
It's the people from Palmyra.
It has to be.
Oh, my goodness. Couldn't even believe it. He says, you guys ought to get an award for that. He said, because there's probably like,
We just.
Troy Boone, that's, oh, what's his name out on the State Road? It's not Colby, what's the other one? He used to be on the recycling committee. Anyway, his son Troy runs the recycling program down in solid waste down in Fort.
Was that Mr. Smith?
No, not Kevin, it's, what is his name? Charlie Moon.
Charlie Moon.
Charlie
Oh,
Moon.
okay, that was a lot, he had a lot.
His son, I was friends with him when he was going up to school, he was like 3 years older than me. And
Isn't he married to, Sally, to one of the Chadwicks? Yeah.
Catholic, yes,
Slender.
and he runs I think he's a city planner, but he started as their solid waste and recycling guy. And, he said that, he was telling me about all of the stuff that he recycled, he said, my dad ever get after you about the stuff? I said, oh yeah, I said, he comes in all the time that you're down here, you're down there, he said, I hope you don't take offense to that, and I said, no, I said, because I'll tell you what, I saw a statistic that I recycled more TVs than you did. You have a population than me. I just said, he says, I don't do that anymore, by the way, he says, he's the new city planner, he got promoted, so. But he did a lot, he's done a lot. He did a lot for the program. He saved them over $3.5 million in solid waste costs. He's done a lot down there. Very pleased with it.
All right, so if there aren't any other questions, we'll finish up with going through the community resilience self-evaluation. We wrote everything down, but not everything needs to stay on here. So the first section, I'm gonna read some of this so the audience will have that too. But this is a tool to help organize the town's approach to increasing our resilience to all these natural hazards and all these strange storms and climate changes that we have. So we've got the community name, who's providing the resources, the date and everything. And what I wanted to know is the evaluation was discussed during one meeting so far, 5/9 work session. We're having a work session this evening. And I'm thinking we're gonna be all set to go to maybe having a community workshop and inviting people to your July meeting. And then perhaps after that, having a public informational session, once we're done and get ready to file the grant, have that at the town council meeting. So you're supposed to discuss it at one community workshop, but I think having more is a good thing. And we want to make sure that all of this is on here, but we want to leave room for citizens when we do have the informational session so that they can add things to it. But we're helping to come up with what the town would need. So the first question is, what are 2 things your community is doing well? All the responses we got were fire, rescue, EMS, the emergency team response was great. 2, we addressed threats, active shooter, airport, and assist the elderly with programs. 3, the airport and hospital landing areas for transport for emergency medical care. Those all came from one of the committee members. 4 is we have 7 parks and open space. 5, we have a community type village. 6, the public library. 7, community spirit, which is great. 8, was mine, getting low interest loans for water and sewer enhancements, which is about $7 million now. And because they're low interest or no interest, when you have regular loans and the rate is high and it's not low interest, sometimes you pay as much money in interest as you do in your debt service. So it's like a big savings. And I wrote down 9, applying for many grants as an alternative revenue source to taxes, because otherwise, if we hadn't gotten the 20-something million worth of grants, then and all the matches and everything, we would have either have raised taxes to do some projects, but most likely would not have done the projects. Because we just didn't have the money and the taxes can only be so high. So those are all the items that we have, and we only need to put two things down, and when we file this form with the state, we'll only do two things. So is there anything at this point you wanna take off or add? We can leave it as it is now, but when we do the final document, we're gonna have to remove some items. Or give this all to the public and see which ones they want to keep. We could probably combine the 1 and 2, so everything went together on the responses, so that would cut one down. And we might be able to put the parks, open space and the library together as community resources. So that would cut down a couple of numbers. So
What
if we-
exactly does community village mean?
I think they mean that we're like a village downtown, it's like a community, it was the wording somebody used. And again, we can change these, we'll leave it
And
as
there
it,
again, community village and community spirit are sort of
yeah.
a similar thing.
Yeah.
We can try to combine that, okay, we'll do that, we can combine get rid of 3 of these.
I
couple
think
of
that,
numbers.
and probably that community village too is like you're addressing to make it more like a small town. Village looking place and not have big box stores on
Yeah.
every corner. and-
So I'll do some combining there. The next question is, what are 2 areas that could be improved in the short term? So the items that people have, well, number 1, addressing of how people aren't involved with things since COVID, having more community involvement, that was one of the committee members. 2, this is mine, more notification to the public of activities and programs. For example, we need to communicate better hazard preparation information, like on where are the shelters, where are the evacuation routes and supplies and everything. And that's something that, you know, we need to do more in the EMA area, basically, with all these hazards and everything going on. I mean, I might know this information, but everybody doesn't know it. The citizens need to know it. And that's something Bernard would work on, with all of us. 3 is the reuse center open. That was somebody's priority. 4, the loss of the egg festival and bringing it back with a, different focus. It wouldn't be the egg festival, but it might be an agricultural fair.
Which is related to number 1,
Pardon?
which is related to number 1, getting
Yeah, more-
volunteers.
Yeah, more
That's
community
together.
involvement. Yeah, this is true. Number 5, we're community celebration on climate change. Maybe having a community forum in which we go over all of this. As well as if we got one of the other grants, like on the trees and everything, because the committee used to have forums where we had speakers come in and an arborist and everything. Still waiting to see the results on those grants.
It's a little odd way to put it, a community celebration.
Celebrating climate
Yeah,
change.
celebrating. I mean,
Yeah.
there might be another way of saying it.
Yes, I think it could
Yeah.
be one little differently. And 6, celebration about the river and the geography that we have through town, because one of the projects of the first comprehensive plan back in the 60s and in the 70s and 80s and 90s, and the one we have now, is that we want to have, or the people, visionaries, want to have a trail that goes along the rivers to tie all of the rivers and the river and the parks all together, because we've got 7 parks, town properties, and most of this is along the river. There's just not trails that meet up. So that's a nice project, but one that environmentally would be difficult to do, but it's like a dream project people have. So is there anything you'd like to take off? We'll reword the community celebration on climate change. And maybe combine whatever else we can. But those are things, I'm not sure we could bring back the egg festival in the short term, because that would take a bit, but. they are trying to have a festival, a little festival in July, August and September. So the next question is, what is important for your community to address in the long term? So we've got one, community resilience, given all these severe weather storms. That would be a long-term project and definitely true. The tree canopy strengthened by pruning, cutting, and tree planting. 3 is sustainability for upcoming debt service after the Pittsfield Future Fund is depleted. And we've been able to pay off all the new loans that we've had for paving and other town projects after not having loans for years and having infrastructure run down by using the Pittsfield Future Fund to pay the debt service payments, but that's gonna run out in 5 years or so. And so what do we do after that? Because all of a sudden taxes will have to be used. 4 is to reduce underlying vulnerabilities, people that need housing. We've got camps and places where people are living at the ends of roads and by the river and everything. And regular families not being able to afford housing because it's so expensive. And that's all up here now, the encampments and everything. So those are sort of long-term issues. We did apply for a grant, a big one that doesn't have a match and it's very competitive. A new one, and it's a one-timer, which Donnie and I put together to prune 50 trees. We don't have any real cutting unless we got a problem, and then do tree planting for 40 trees. This is a huge grant of over $60,000. So it was a long shot. As competition is so fierce, they were going to do the announcements by June 1, but they're not even through all of the applications. There's so many. And we did apply for a regular one with a match of ourselves and in kind for the community forums, tree walks for the children, and anyone that wants to go for a weekend one, and doing some tree planting and everything. And updating our street tree maintenance plan. So we got 2 in there, and you can only get 1. Hopefully we'll get something. So do we want to take any of these out or leave them all in there right now? Looks like leave them. All right. So the next item on the survey we fill out to apply for the resilience grant is what specific 3 to 5 actions are priorities for your community. And so 1, we've got safety for the citizens, having a system of notification of hazards and resources, including preparedness information. I think that's very important. 2, stabilizing the tree canopy, which is important. If you look at our whole tree canopy in the downtown and the aligning streets, it's kind of scary because the trees are very old and we just can't afford to cut them all down. The state does not take care of the trees on the state roads, so the town has to do those too. And you could spend your whole public works budget doing this and do nothing else. 3, plan to address a train derailment or spill of chemicals. This is a very big concern of the police chief, to have a plan. And likely we could get a plan, and Bernard was gonna get a plan from Portland or down where the big train area is. 4 is housing availability and affordability. That's also in the top one. 5, heating, cooling centers, and 6, people being civil to each other. Something that we found was not very good after COVID, but is improving now. So those are all 3 to 5 actions that are priorities for the community. But you'd have to figure out goals and objectives to do them. So anything we want to change on that? Looks like we're moving right along here, which is good. Number 1, these are minimizing risk and exposure to hazards. Now we've got our numbers for them. Has your community assessed the likelihood of various types of hazards or disruptive events? And so we wrote down, the Somerset County Hazard Mitigation Plan is under review, and the new updated plan, we were told by Bernard and Donnie, will address these new hazards. So I did request a copy of the draft, and I haven't seen it yet. We likely need a new detailed plan for Pittsfield on how to address some of these hazards. Like if all of a sudden you have a volatile weather conditions and extended power outage, of 3 to 5 days or more in the winter, what would we do? You know, that's kind of scary. We had a 3-day one, for everybody, several summers ago. It was tropical, so it wasn't, you know, you didn't have the heating problem, but then parts of the town were out with the last storm for several days.
3 days,
For
yeah.
some. So everybody stayed in their homes and were separated until the police and others, contacted the school, and the school, SAD 53 allowed Warsaw to be used as a heating center, as a warm place to go and, plug in your electronics and everything to keep up to date on items, and, that was good. It wasn't a true shelter, but it was available for certain hours, but we would need something beyond that. We don't have a certified, shelter at this point.
And when you talk about communication too,
Mhm.
I have a friend who lived in this part of town, and had power, didn't realize until 2 days later, whatever, came downtown, says, oh, you don't have power, you can come to our house if you want. I mean, just
Yeah,
not knowing if you didn't go down
Right.
there, that half the town was out for 3 days, or
Yeah.
not half, part, a little bit.
no,
Whatever.
this is true. This is an area that we really need to improve upon. And this is a grant coming up that we can do that, do some projects and see how to handle this. So Donnie, has that Somerset County plan been approved, or is it still moving along? You know, being
The
reviewed.
last time I knew, my plan in Detroit, you know, most of them are under review, but most of them made changes. I don't know on the town level if they've accepted everybody's changes
Mhm.
or, but I know that, I think it was June 1. I think it
Okay.
was June 1, they had to have them into effect, so. And
So that's something we need to look
Yeah.
into. So Bernard would have submitted our plan.
would have submitted it for any changes or anything, because we had to be able to get mitigation grant money.
Right, so we'd have to add in all these new type emergencies that we never had
And
before.
our old mitigation plan has a lot of, because part of that mitigation plan was based on GE
Yeah, okay.
and the SAS with people, the number of people, workers that we'd have to get, you know, communicated or what. Yeah, so it's been a while.
It's outdated.
I think there's a song that's like, it's been a while. I mean, I think there's a song on the radio that said that. It's been a while. Yeah, so yeah, it was supposed to be able to get hazard mitigation money, so I would assume.
So the EMA director's attempting to retire again,
Mhm.
at the county, so would he be the person to contact?
Mike Smith is not,
He was,
he did retire.
yeah, and then he came back.
He's come back as a helper, correct, or is he the, I don't know what he's doing over there.
Now they're advertising the position again.
Oh, so maybe he is back to help until he gets somebody to fill it.
Mhm. It's hard to get an EMA director. They work 24/7
Yeah,
and they don't really get paid a lot.
yeah. It's a rough job.
Yes, this is true. You know that. And on default.
A lot of
I know that.
High hours, low pay, anybody interested?
So is that something you could check into?
I'll check into that part of it, I'll see I'll.
Make sure that we're all set and, because we gotta put the answers on this form.
Yeah,
All right, good. Next question is, has your community assessed how the likelihood of each hazard has changed over time and may change in the future? So that's pretty much the same answer as the prior one. And so I wrote down that, same as above, it's in process with the county. And that our town's EMA director, as well as our town's recycling coordinator, as fire chief and EMA director in other towns has been involved. But the town would benefit for a more specific assessment. So that might be something that the grant could look at. 3, has your community assessed the impacts or consequences of each type of hazard for the community? And so locally, we have talked about some of the hazards, but we don't have a formal plan for all of this. This is where we need to improve upon, because we have all these new hazards. It's not as though we're going to deal with a flood anymore. Hopefully, we're gonna have these storms. And sort of these questions are sort of asking the same thing, a little bit different twist.
Mhm.
4 is your community taking steps to reduce exposure to multiple risk types? And the answer to this is no. We are working with the Somerset County plan, but this is an area we need to work in.
Okay.
It's the tree canopy is part of that too, but because trees are one of our biggest problems.
They are,
At
yes.
this point in time, I mean, just in terms of, that's why we lose electricity, that's why, you know, and with the winds picking up,
Mhm.
trees are. And so at least we're addressing that somewhat through the tree
Yes,
canopy.
this
grant.
is true. I know they talked about in our plan that we're supposed to be pruning all these trees, but just to take down a deal with the ones, the big trees that come down, or the branches takes up all of Donnie's budget, and then it overdrafts it too.
Yeah, like the last, matter of fact, it's becoming a big issue. Over the last 3 years since they took over as public works director, we budget $9,500 for tree removal, pruning, and grinding stumps. The 2 previous years, I've spent close to $25,000 addressing the issue. And the state, of course, me complaining on the state roads, complaining as they've done another $25,000 or $30,000 worth of that same stuff. When I started, there was 118 problem or dangerous trees. We've got the list down to 19 right now that need to be addressed. We got one up here on Somerset Avenue. That's at 411. And we're debating whether it's a town or state tree, but it's $12,500 just to take the tree down. So with a $9,500 budget, that's probably not gonna happen. One of the things I wanna do is address this at budget time, again, that we should be doubling the amount of money that we're using until we can get caught up. There are a few of them that have been very struggle. Point the trees down and down right now, so they call me at 1:35 AM and leave a voicemail, and they're gonna continue to call me until a tree comes down. With limited funds and availability, they're not understanding that we got a limited amount, and I have to use that money to the best of my ability without overdrafting, and if there's money's there, and we can shift things around a little bit to make things happen, but we've come down from over 100 trees to 17 and 19 trees. I think we're doing really well. We've addressed quite a bit in the last 2 years. I'd like to address what we have this year, and hopefully the next couple of years, maybe get a little money and get everything caught up where it needs to be. And then with this project, canopy grant, maybe get some pruning of the other ones and some of the trimming done. So again, our weather, everybody says, you know, climate change, weather's changing. I do know one thing is we're not getting the 4-day blizzards like we used to. We're getting 2 feet of snow like right now, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
The wind, we're getting them micro bursts, and like Scott said, they're more short-term events, but they're violent in that short term, and they're leaving long-term effects.
Because the other issue with trees down everywhere in the woods and everything is that if we do hit a really dry spell, we could really have issues as far as fire.
Wow.
goes, Because of, all you gotta do is drive along and see into the woods.
Oh, you don't even have to do that. I mean, I've gone up and done an assessment with the Maine Forest Service. I've been lucky enough to go up the last couple of years out of the airport and do an aerial assessment. You would not believe the dead brush and slash that's in the woods that's back from the ice storm in 1998 that we still haven't addressed. We're due if we don't get on top of this, especially around our populated, what we call the wild and urban interface, where we've got urban. If we don't address around this, it's not going to only just affect the forest, which is at some point it's good, it's renewal of the ecosystem, but when it takes houses and it takes out infrastructure and it takes out substations and it takes out that sort of thing, that's problematic. So we need to make that barrier, like you said, and get it away from what we have. If not, we're going to lose everything.
We were hoping CMP would take the tree down for us, because they said they would. Now, does CMP take care of any trees that are on, like what the town would take care of on the roadside? Do they ever take things down that might interfere with their lines? Cause they
They,
do,
they have,
and
they have a maintenance, they have maintenance.
they come, they
Contract.
trim, if it's gonna go on their power line, and
Yes.
we were kind of convincing them, you should take the whole tree down, because it's gonna wreck your power line. They said yes, and they didn't, we had to take down.
No, they
help?
will not take trees, they will take what they think is going to
The
be
ones-
the biggest
Yeah.
problem for the tree. It's like this one at 411. It's got three multiple branches and trunks, and one's starting to split, it's rock maple, it's twisted, it's not like, it's been split for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, it hasn't gone anywhere. So I don't believe the whole thing's gonna topple over in a storm. It's held up with all these storms, and knowing the nature of the tree, and what it is. Yes, is it a priority to get down, does it need to be down tomorrow? Probably not. And at the cost of $12,500, I have to use my funds of $9,500
Yeah.
very frugally to get as much done as I can to get the best.
Yeah.
Results for what we need. So
Is that the tree by the trunk line?
that's the one that's right across from Ron and Cynthia Lewis. It's right up, it's the house just before the motel. It's the one that hangs up. It's got a trunk that hangs out over the power lines over towards Barney's or whatever. And again, it's a rock maple. It's a hardwood. The roots grow really, really deep. The wood is really strong. But I have one corner of Nichols and Main Street. There's a nice young lady who's come up 3 or 4 times. So you're gonna mark the trees. They're right beside her house. I need to measure them to see if they're in our right of way, but they're one of them, what they call line trees. I don't know who, what, where, when, and why, but all these trees are old. It's just like the ones at MCI. We line these trees up on every street. We strategically put them and then said, we never thought about the impact. In 80 years, if these will be this big and they're gonna be this far from a house and have a branch this big hanging over our
And
house.
they're both around at the same time.
Then everybody going today, going, what were these people thinking back in the 1920s and 30s of planting these trees? Look at the size of these things. Again, no foresight. We addressed that in this grant, that getting certain species of trees that only grow to a certain height, that have a certain canopy.
Slow growers.
Slow growers and canopy, so we don't get so we're not leaving a legacy 50, 60, 70 years down the road for the rest of them. Go, what were they thinking? They had to take, look at all the money they spent on taking these trees down, and then they planted these ones. Now we're having to deal with these ones. These ones are even worse. So, yeah.
So in the Main Street project that we're working on, the replacement of the trees that have all of their roots under the sidewalk, heaving it up and everything will be, shrubs and
Right.
tiny trees and everything,
Yeah.
if there are any.
And if
There'll
you
be
look at this,
some.
yeah, you look at the other one down by the old Kleinsman, down on the other side of the theater, that thing. That wasn't, I think they told us that tree was only supposed to be 14 feet. That thing's all scraggly, you see it hanging, it looks awful when you're pulling it across the railroad tracks coming up through town, and you look at that thing and it's. I don't know what it is, I don't know what type of tree it is, it's horrible, I would never. I wanna find out what species it is, and it's never ever, I have a plant, it's never again, any of that. It's horrible. And they weren't supposed to have the root structure, if you look out there, that's why the curbing and under the power and the
Everything's deep.
conduit for the lights and everything's all cracked and broken, it's all because of the roots of the trees.
Some of the limbs are even under the buildings.
Yes, yeah, that's bad.
All right, very good. So that was a good subject matter. So 6, is your
I have
community,
a question. Number 4, yes and no are both marked.
Yes.
oh, I'm sorry. All right, is your community taking steps to reduce exposure? No.
No.
Yes and no, but no.
Steps.
Yeah.
Okay.
No is
I
the
don't-
majority one. All right, 6, is your community preparing for low probability but high consequence events? And I put no. And these, we're gonna have to explain this out. These events could be, the state indicates a 1 in 100 year flood or a prolonged electricity outage or heating fuel shortage. What events might the community need to consider? So although we do have the Somerset County plan and we've got different activities listed in it and types of storms, we would need to figure this out. We would need a plan. What would happen if there's no gas in town? How would you drive your vehicles around if it's, an extended period?
Why didn't we have a brownout a couple of days ago? Like, power brownout. In certain parts of town.
You know how that works? Do you know what a brownout is? It's mostly for commercial businesses. High consumption uses of electricity. They do it when there's hot weather and stuff in the
Yeah, all
city.
I know is I was just minding my own business where I was living,
Yes.
and it just would, and.
Yeah,
Power went down.
if cities have high usage days in New York City, and they got 64,000 air conditioners going because it's hot, excruciating temperatures. They'll do it to Hancock Lumber, they'll do it to bigger places, they'll brown out their electricity, they'll make them shut down. So-
Yeah, that's what I figured was happening, but I wasn't sure, so I figured I would ask.
So
In some places, based on their usage of whatever, that's part of their energy contract. If you've got a bigger corporation that owns your apartment, that says that we'll brown you out because of they need the cooling or the heating in another part of a heavily populated area, that they're able to take it away from us.
So when did that happen?
Couple day,
It was last
I
week, wasn't it?
I think it was this Wednesday, just, about 4 o'clock.
Oh, no, that wasn't a brownout. They did that because they had to get in close to the new fiber optic. The fiber optic, they had to shut down power for a
Oh,
little while so they could get their fiber.
that
optic.
explains it.
That's what they were doing. It's a new Fidium fiber.
Okay, that explains it.
Yeah,
Okay,
so they
And that
didn't,
was
so they
just
didn't get
a
their guys
certain-
electrocuted. They were
that was just a
insensitive.
certain area.
Yeah, that was just for 2 hours. Yeah,
Oh, okay,
Now we know the answer to that, so that's good.
cool.
So I also wrote down in this section, thinking about this, you know, a lot of people are getting generators to deal with the electricity issue, but you have a whole population in town that's low income that doesn't have disposable income. You have elderly living in homes that don't have a generator.
Yeah.
You know, and they stay in their house in the winter without heat, lights and water, so there's a vulnerable population that we would somehow need to figure out how to address. You know, would we have, some towns have gotten a list of figured out in the neighborhoods because they have a neighborhood leader who figures out who needs to be checked on.
yeah, we'll make it. Fun.
Yeah.
I got Jerry and Tim calling.
No,
That
that's
sounds
not
like
good.
water.
That's not good.
home to bed.
So we'll have vulnerable individuals that somehow we need to check on. And so I did work in a community that did assemble a list of people volunteer. So we would go check on them because we had a full-time ambulance service. And so they would go out when they didn't have calls and there were bad storms and everything. Or the electricity was off for 3 or 4 days. So that's something to think about. Does anyone have any changes or anything? All right, well, on number 7, we're getting there here. 7, has your community assessed the consequences of multiple events or different types of hazards occurring in geographical or temporal proximity? And so they give an example, this would include back-to-back flooding events or a power outage during a heat wave. And so this is an area that we need to work on, just like this whole area. We don't have a certified emergency shelter. We were fortunate that Warsaw was very generous and opened up their gyms for us. And we just need to staff them, which we did for periods of time. Number 8 is your community assessing emerging risks, which are drought, wildfire, and identifying blind spots. So they talk about considering public health threats that might be worsened by climate change, such as contamination of drinking water sources, vector-borne diseases from ticks and mosquitoes. Well, we definitely have the ticks and mosquitoes, and fortunately, we have a really good drinking water source, so hopefully that would not be an issue. I put down the Somerset County plan, you know, has these items listed, but again, this is like the same question in different ways, 5 of them now, in which the Somerset County plan, yes, it's being updated for these different types of items, but it's not gonna be totally specific. Our plan is just gonna list these things that Bernard worked on, but we need to have an action plan that can be used for all of them, or a couple of action plans that can cover them, you know, and tell people a communication method so that people know what to do. And we've talked about, but couldn't afford, when we update the website, and we decided not to this year. But if we did and had the funding, there's a source. But again, it would only work when you had electricity or you had your Wi-Fi, but at least you could have people sign up with their emails and then you could send messages to them. But again, it's gonna be nice information, helpful information, but it's not gonna work during electricity outages. So it has to be another method. Do we have any changes here? As I said, each of the questions sort of ask the same thing in a different way, and that answer is pretty much the same. All right, so we'll go on to, with 2 more sections to get through. Understanding sensitivity and building resilience. Number 9, is your community tracking underlying social characteristics and trends that increase vulnerability? And so that answer is yes. We have a comprehensive plan with information in it. It talks about the demographics, health issues, and a variety of items, but it's old, being over 10 years old now, and the data is older than that. So updating the comprehensive plan would be very helpful. And the demographics of the town has changed drastically since COVID. We had a lot of people move in from out of state across the nation, buy houses at outrageous prices and drive up the cost of the homes and everything. And this happened all across the state of Maine. So that data needs to be updated and hopefully we'll be able to work on the comprehensive plan. I did apply for a grant for a housing study, which was a one-time grant, which everybody in the state, I think, applied for. So they'll issue a few, and that's still under review. I also put transportation for seniors and disabled, because we don't have an ability to transport people beyond the bus that the hospital has to take people to their appointments, which is
Really
great.
good idea.
Yeah, I know the public transportation thing is an issue. The bus used to come in to the plaza. This is before I got here. And then you could be transported, on the route to wherever you were gonna go. I remember being picked up as a student at UMO and we'd ride the bus up to get to Orono from Freeport. But we don't have that luxury here. Some of the towns in southern Maine, which are more densely packed and would be able to do this, applied for this type of climate resilience grant in the first round to get a bus service going. But again, that's highly expensive and we don't have the population base for that. So what do you do? And I also put housing availability and aging in place with resources, because people normally, as their seniors, want to keep their house and their property, it's paid for, they want to stay there as long as possible. What type of help can they get beyond, Medicare and all of the few resources with that? Is there something that can be done?
Yeah, as far as the driving, I know a community, they have neighbors driving neighbors. And it's a volunteer thing. I don't know how they run, but that in a small community, the community of Rome does that. Or that general area.
Do you know of a town that has that?
I think it's Rome, I'm not sure.
I didn't know we did that.
I know, or it's around there, so it's definitely a small community
Yeah,
type
small
setting.
area.
And I don't know if there's, is it just total volunteers? Is there anything to maybe help any liability insurance or not? I don't know what those are.
All right, well, that's something good to look at. Yeah, thank you. Number 10, is your community proactively addressing vulnerabilities associated with these underlying characteristics? And that answer is no. There's been no time since COVID, but I think everything is coming back really well now. We're getting volunteers, committee members are coming back. We've added back some staff and everything. So that's something that we do need to look at. 10, does your community have financial resources in reserve to cope with or absorb shocks? And so like a rainy day fund. So the town does have, that's a yes, multiple reserves for specific projects. So we save money toward a fire truck. We save money for the police vehicles, for highway work, although that's depleted now. But we have reserves for specific items. The library has some funding, so in case there's an emergency, we can try to cover it, but may not have all the monies we need, but at least it makes a dent to it. And so we budget some money each year, which is hard to do. We also have the unappropriated surplus for emergencies, but at this point, we're a little bit above the amount that we should have. So you try not to use that unless you get a true emergency. So at least that's a good item. 12, is your community building flexible human capacity that can be drawn on in emergencies? So we do have mutual aid for the fire department. 10 fire departments will come if you need help or you go help. Mutual aid with the sheriff's office, that we've had, always had, the state police will come in certain situations. And we did set up two mutual aid agreements, which we hadn't had for years with police departments, with Newport and Clinton. There is other assistance in which, when we didn't have an ACO, the ACO from another town would come over and help, and when we have one and they don't have one, so we have these informal things that go on. But an idea is to develop a list of informed volunteers who could assist during these extreme events, and they would have to be trained properly and everything. And people that likely were not gonna be called in, that might be police officers that live here in town, but a police officer in another community, you know, that would wanna come in and help. People that
Could we
have,
get a neighborhood watch started from, just to have it in town?
Mhm. we did have those, and that's something we can, that's a good idea. We can discuss that with the police department.
Yeah, just so we have it around, just so so if people have to report something, they can,
Mhm.
don't have to come out all the way up here, they can report it to somebody else and then it will get reported
Mhm.
here.
That's something we can talk about. We have the signs are still up from having a neighborhood watch, so.
Not everywhere, but.
Yeah, we have them on the town limits, basically, yeah. It's got an interesting picture on it, but that's what people wanted. It's like criminals flying through.
Yeah, really. Like
Yeah,
they
the little-
they look like that when you.
I know. They were creative.
It was kind of like from the Hardy Boys.
Yep, so I'll write that note down.
Cool.
And so they talked about, new capacity on the number 14. And yes, it is a good idea, you know, to look at how to deal with flooding and everything. They talk about having stormwater utility fees and everything, and that's something big cities, Lewiston and Bangor did that, but the town here has separated the stormwater from the sewer system as best as it can, and we did some big studies, which then gave us a lot more capacity, so we could deal with these flooding events. But of course, there's always more to do. I put down no, because we haven't technically done all this, but we do have a couple of examples. 15, does the community have policies in place to build back smarter or recover with resilience after a disruptive event? And for this area, they talk about floodplain ordinances, building codes, and yes, we do have all of that. We have the floodplain ordinance, which allows people to get the insurance. The zoning ordinance deals with issues when you have a major or substantial damage, so your building is out of service and should be torn down. Now, whether it can be taken care of without going to court is a different story. It's hard to enforce these things, but we do have it. I did write it would be good to have a post-disaster recovery plan, and so that's something in which ties in with the other categories and having some plans and actions that we can take to help people and get information out. Number 16, does the community stress test to ensure possible risks are manageable? And they talk about having the tabletop exercise, which was kind of ironic because Johnny was at the tabletop exercise for the county that evidently was taking place here.
Yeah.
When we were discussing it at the last recycling committee meeting. And so, yes, there's been a number of these tabletop exercises, mostly because the regional hospital is here and you have to have a plan.
the American Hospital Association makes them at least one time a year do some sort of thing for accreditation for hospitals, so it's a requirement. At some point, I think you're gonna find it's gonna be a requirement of local communities as well, so. Coming down the road to make sure that we're there.
So number 17, does the community have a policy or process for managing uncertainty? All right, so
These questions are being-
that is a bizarre question.
It is.
We still
Are you
have
ready
several
for something
churches.
that's
If we're
uncertain?
uncertain,
Can you plan for uncertainty? I'm pretty uncertain that I can,
Yeah,
the uncertainty is gonna be uncertain.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Yeah, some of these questions are
Is
the
the
same thing.
Universalist Church for sale? Because.
It was,
yeah.
yes. Is
Because
it-
I see a for sale sign by it,
Yes.
I wasn't sure if it was for sale.
It was, and there's a contract that we're
Yes.
That's
working
wonderful.
on with
Oh.
somebody to do housing, I think.
Yes.
Oh, I just was wondering because I saw the for sale,
Yeah.
sales sign by it.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but
Bummer.
it requires a lot of
That's
renovation.
the
Bad.
foundation.
Yeah, I did.
Hopefully they'll keep the windows and keep the facility and everything.
But, excuse me, what was you had mentioned, what was the purpose for, they're going to repurpose the buildings?
For housing.
For
Yeah,
housing?
we've heard
Cool.
through the grapevine for some type of housing. I don't know any details,
That would be-
I
but
have money, because I've heard it some.
hopefully
Lot.
whatever they do in the contract, they have it that they can't just leave it, and take the windows and stuff like that. Hopefully it's a.
Yeah, it's gonna be repurposed or something.
Okay,
I was curious in terms of what happens as far as taxes go.
Mhm.
Well, it now will become.
There'll be a tax.
Yeah, it would
tax
be
bill.
taxed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Unless they were a nonprofit, because some of the big housing likely they won't be, but some of the
Right.
housing projects in town do not pay taxes.
Mhm.
Multiples
How are
don't.
they gonna get that nice organ out? That pipe organ out, there.
I have no idea.
Are you interested in buying a pipe organ?
No,
Okay,
no, I was
I'm
just wondering
interested
how.
in us dropping it off.
I was just wondering,
I don't think it's
Get it
going
out
to the
there.
transfer station.
No.
I was just wondering how you get it out of there.
So this question I just wrote down, use common sense, check with experts and follow emergency protocols. The answer is no, I don't know how you would have a policy. The process to manage uncertainty, we'd be uncertain about it. So is there anything we want to change on this? I know there's a lot of details, but we need to fill it in. I'll make sure every answer just has one answer, and I'll combine as many things as I can.
okay.
But I think that we've got a good document. We know the areas we need to work in. It's basically the emergency management protocols for the events and getting the people so they know how to protect themselves and where to go and everything. So we're not gonna go through all this because it's 8 o'clock, but the next document we'll want to talk about at our next meeting is the specifics that we want to do on the color-coded community resilience partnership. And so we had chosen the last item, so think about those for the next meeting. We were interested in strategy area F, which is on page 7 of 10. So page 7 of 10, build healthy and resilient communities. And so we don't need to pick everything. We just need to pick a few things. So that when we apply for a $50,000 grant, because they're on 50,000, we've got some reasonable projects to do, and we'll do some cost analysis before we submit all this. But that is strategy area F, so think about that one. And it goes, has plan for community resilience, reduce flood risk, we might not want that part, because we've done a lot in that area. Strengthen public health is on the back, on page 8. We also had strategy area H on page 10 of 10. Engaging people, because if everybody's not engaged, we can't do any of these projects. So there's some different items we can do there, and then maybe a few things on another category. I'll look through that, but those are the ones that we chose at the last meeting. We also are interested in strategy area G, but we can't, take too much there. That does have a couple of good projects on it. So think about those and what you'd like to do for the next meeting. We'll finish that document. And we might try to have advertise a public session to go over the resilient self-evaluation. And then to talk about this and get people involved and everything. So anybody have anything else? We're at 8 o'clock. So we'll adjourn. Thank you all so much for coming. I will try to get the document updated prior to the meeting, next meeting. But of course, it would be wonderful if we got the big pruning, in pre-planting grant, so I would be distracted by that. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
So we're adjourning at 8:04.
Well, I hope it's.